The Master of Lore may forget, but the memory of the Macho Mage is eternal. Oh, yeah. Hello everyone, welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. Joining me in the background are my most adorable co-host Finn, apprentice storyteller and uninitiated to any circles of lore, who is busy growing new bones from the depths of his gums. And also joining us is my most adorable co-host, Nora, apprentice storyteller and initiate to the 8th circle of lore. Today, we are going back to 2nd and 3rd level spells because, one, there were numerous suggestions from Cptcrank, Gordon McGinnes, and others who had commented that I was considering. But then it became a definitive step back instead of going to 4th and 5th level spells because I found I missed a whole ass slide. It's the 3rd time I've done this, but the first time I did it where I didn't catch the mistake before uploading the video. So we are back to cover that and also go over some of the other suggestions and a few other spells. So let's go ahead and get into this. Starting off with our 3rd level spells that we missed, we have Armor Lock. Select an armored target within 100 feet plus 10 feet every caster level, and on a failed reflex save for 1 round per caster level, a target in heavy metal armor becomes staggered. A target in light or medium metal armor becomes entangled instead, and targets who are wearing no or non-metal armor are unaffected. Targets in heavy metal armor that succeed become entangled, while those in light or medium metal armor who succeed are unaffected. Now, this is a spell that's interesting because it's limited to the kinds of targets it can affect, but it's targeted at them in such a way that you're probably going to succeed because a lot of targets who are wearing heavy metal armor tend to not have the best dexterity scores. That's not always true, but the fact that this is keyed to targets who are typically not going to have very great saves and aren't going to have great dexterity scores to accompany poor reflex saves, this is a spell that's ideally suited to those selected targets to begin with. And because we are a type of mage that's looking to get into the thick of the fighting and mix it up in melee, this is probably going to be an ideal target to throw this debuff on, particularly for just that encounter, which works because it's only working for 1 round a level to begin with. And even then, if they succeed, instead of being staggered, they're entangled as a kicker effect for if they win anyways. So they're still getting a bit of a debuff. So all the way around, not something you're going to have for every target, but for the targets that this is suited for, definitely an interesting use. But then we also have Arcane Reinforcement. It's not a combat spell, but for instances where maybe you didn't invest super heavily or much at all into your crafting skills, this can be a boon. Add Spellcraft to your crafting checks when making magic items. So if you use this spell to add your Spellcraft skill ranks, your total Spellcraft skill, on top of your crafting checks, then you're going to get a significant bonus, because if you put, say, 1 rank into leatherworking, you have 1 rank in it, and it's an intelligent-based skill, and because it's a class skill, you're already going to have a pretty solid bonus there anyways, because it's 1 plus 5 with your intelligence score, so that's a 6 already, and to top it off, because it's a class skill, you get that plus 3 miscellaneous modifier on top of it, so you're looking at a plus 9 on craft leatherworking right out the gate there. Then add in all of your ranks from Spellcraft on top of it, which should be maxed out, and you're a level 5 wizard by the time you get 3rd level spells. That's another plus 5 right there, so you're looking at a plus 14 bonus before you've even had to make a roll. You're probably going to be able to craft those items and make them mastercraft with some reliability. And if it's a crafting skill that you have regularly put ranks into, let's say it matches, you're already at a plus 14, so it's a plus 19 total there on top of all of it. So this spell will make your crafting woes and worries disappear pretty reliably if you've done even the barest investment of skill ranks into any crafting skills that might have caught your eye. So, definitely worth it. But now, let's move on to our more second level spells. And to start things off, we have Force Sword. This one recommended by Gordon McGinnes, and it was one I had looked at, wanted to add in, but just didn't for whatever reason. I think it was because I kept getting it mixed up with Spell Sword. It's another spell that we'll be going over here in a moment. But Force Sword. Create a longsword made of pure force that lasts 1 minute per caster level and acts as a +1 weapon. At level 8, it scales up and works as a +2 longsword, and a +3 longsword at level 13. It can't be harmed by physical attacks, but Dispel Magic Disintegrate, a Sphere of Annihilation, or a Rod of Cancellation affects it as normal, as they would typically. So Dispel Magic gets rid of it, Rod of Cancellation also gets rid of it. Those are the ways that it's affected. It can't be sundered or broken otherwise. And because this is a magic weapon, and it's a weapon that you're generating with your magic, so you're proficient with it, this actually does a lot for you in terms of your up-close combat abilities, especially if you haven't spent any feats to take any weapon proficiencies, for example, or have one because of some background option or some bit of ancestry that you picked out for yourself. Elves and dwarves are inherently proficient with weapons that have, dwarven axe, dwarven urgosh, or elven longblade, or whatever the case may be. They're automatically proficient with those, just in the same way that orcs, as another example, are proficient with falchions, or weapons with orc in the name, in the title, representing that there's something endemic to those and to the associated cultures of those ancestries. So, this can be a great way for getting yourself a solid weapon, and a weapon that inherently counts as magic. Definitely great, but there's another layer that we have to talk about on top of this. Toppling spell. This is a force effect, so just hitting with this weapon means you could potentially end up knocking your target over, toppling them to the ground, rendering them prone and much more vulnerable to melee attacks from you, your allies, any summoned creatures that might be present. So this combos very, very nicely with the Macho Mage build that we're kind of playing around with, or just in general with builds that might have toppling spell included in them. So this is just generally a pretty solid spell with this effect. If you're not a wizard looking to engage in any melee or don't have toppling spell, then pass by this. Another one recommended by Gordon McGinnes was visualization of the body. It takes 1 hour to cast, so definitely not something you're using in combat, but because it lasts for 24 hours, it's a great pre-combat spell to throw down to buff yourself to either strength, dexterity, or constitution. Strength or dexterity, as your selection, give a +5 bonus on skill checks tied to those scores. Choosing your constitution stat to be buffed increases your max and current hit points by an amount equal to your current hit dice, so that would be a +5 increase. At any time, the spell's remaining duration can be expended to gain a one-time enhancement. Constitution allows you to heal 1d8 plus your total character level in hit points. Expending it if you've selected Dexterity gives you a +4 dodge bonus to AC for 3 rounds. So that wouldn't stack with anything like the dodge feat, because dodge provides a +1 dodge bonus, but that's okay because you probably don't have dodge, is my guess. So getting a +4 dodge bonus to AC means that this will stack with force effects like from Rings of Protection, the bonuses that those apply, or your Mage Armor spell, which gives you a +4 dodge bonus, not a dodge bonus, a +4 deflection bonus to your AC to begin with. So you could be looking at my goodness, little one, a +8 bonus total to your armor class from those two separate sources, Mage Armor and this dodge bonus. Strength will give you a +6 bonus to all strength checks to break objects or to escape and establish grapples for 1 minute. So that's a really huge combat boost there right from the get-go. So even if you're not necessarily proficient in grappling, or if you are taking steps to build yourself into more of a grappling macho mage, then this will be an incredible boon. But overall, this is still just a great spell that is appropriate for this kind of build mechanically, and also just thematically really works very well. So top-notch recommendation there. Absolutely something worth considering. Then we move over to 3rd level spells, and we have Heroism. Touch target creature for 10 minutes a caster level. They get a +2 morale bonus on attack rolls, saves, and skill checks. Since most items don't really confer morale bonuses, it's usually from spells or other class ability effects. This will stack with several different things and does a lot to really boost your combat potential. And that incredible 10 minutes per level duration there per caster level means that at level 5, this is a 50-minute bonus. That's going to get through several combat encounters in most dungeons, most likely. The next spell, though, is Accursed Glare. This is one I found while I was reading through the different recommendations and going, oh yeah, those are good ideas, so should probably talk about those. Accursed Glare. If you glare at a target within 25 feet plus 5 feet per level per 2 caster levels while using the spell, on a failed will save for 1 day per caster level, anytime the target makes an attack roll or saving throw, they must roll twice and take the worst result. When casting, an ally within range of the target can attempt an Intimidate check as a move action, the DC for that being the save DC of this spell. On a success, they add a +2 bonus to your caster level to overcome spell resistance. And so that also ends up stacking with things like Penetrating Spell to overcome spell resistance. So all the way around, this is actually kind of a really good debuff, because while I might rate the attack roll as being iffy on if it's a valuable debuff, it just depends on the target, because using it on wizards for that aspect, unless they are specifically built for this kind of melee roll we're going for, it's probably going to be wasted on them. But the saving throw part is what really sells it, because that's useful on any class. Anybody could be targeted by a spell effect that requires a roll. So if you do, and they're hit with this, they have to roll twice and take the worst result. That's amazing! And it's also great for attack rolls too, because say you use this on a paladin. Now their saving throws are tanked, and their attack rolls are also potentially tanked as well. So, and it lasts for 1 day per caster level. 5 days at this point. 5 days, and they are stuck with this for any sort of combat encounter they might be in. This is actually a really cool, really good spell. It works for the macho mage, it works for any kind of mage, really. And if you have friends, presumably you do, if they are built in any way for Intimidate, and or even if they're not, because this DC is the save DC of this spell, they don't even have to be particularly good at Intimidate. They just have to burn a move action and roll the Intimidate check, and the DC, the target's DC, is the save of this spell. So they could potentially also fail this effect as well, and you get a +2 bonus to overcome their spell resistance. I mean, this spell has a lot going for it that is just really great, and I'm surprised it doesn't get talked about a whole lot more. But that's just another taste of the 2nd and 3rd level spells you could be playing around with, and like I said before in the last video, this is still just kind of scratching the tip of the iceberg there. But let me know your thoughts down below. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let us know in the comments down below. Certainly this one, although it might be the tooth talking, this one seems to think that there's so much more to cover, and he would be right. There is. So, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you haven't done so already, please go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Oh, poor buddy. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night. I'm gonna go take care of this one now.